But the doctor who delivered me was. So as a result, I shake it like Taylor Swift, and it's exhausting. I don't want anyone in this audience to ever feel bad for me because I have a disability. Because to be honest with you, I got 99 problems and palsy is just one. If you had Russian Olympics, I would win a gold medal. I'm Palestinian, Muslim, I'm female, I have a disability, and I live in New Jersey. If you don't feel better about yourself, maybe you should. There's also a truth that people don't like to admit. We're going to talk a lot today. We're going to have some comedy, we're going to have some serious talk, and then we're going to have a question and answer. So, prepare yourselves for that. You guys get to ask anything you want. I ignore the question and continue to talk about what I think. It's not often I get stage time, so I'm going to use it for all it's worth. But there's another reason that I don't want you guys to feel bad for me, and that's because at some point, every single person in this room has dreamt of being disabled. Come on, journey with me. It's Christmas Eve. You're at the mall. You're driving around. And what do you see? 16 empty handicap spaces. You're like, God, can't I just be a little disabled, like dyslexic or something? And there are other perks to being palsy. For example, I never have to stand on line. Never. Airport security, I fly right by. They have no idea I'm an Arab. One of the greatest places on earth to cut lines is the happiest place on earth, Disney World. By round of applause, who's been to Disney World? Evil Kingdom. So I used to go on Space Mountain like 15 times in a row. I would wave at all the other kids sweating in line, and you want to be like me, don't you? But it all went bad because some parents decided to start renting disabled people so that they could cut the lines at Disney. And they got caught. And now nobody's allowed to cut the line. And it's no longer the happiest place on earth. And I just wish that I could have been one of those tour guides, because I would have made it a teachable moment. I would have taken the kids aside from their parents, and I would have said, hi kids, Mommy and Daddy did a really, really bad thing. So I'm going to need you to hold on very tight, because you're just one little accident away from being me. Now, who wants to go on Space Mountain? Can I tell you guys a little bit about myself, so that it relates to the entire school thing? I grew up in a town called Cliffside Park, New Jersey. So my disability and my hometown had the same initials, CP. And my parents are Musa and Rabia. My dad looks like Saddam Hussein, and my mother looks like Julia Roberts. And the way that they met is so romantic. And people don't think of Palestinians as being romantic. Not the first thing that pops in your head in there. Shocking. But the way my parents met is so beautiful. I think they should make a Lifetime movie out of it. They're first cousins. My dad swears that the second he saw my mother, he knew she was the one. And I was like, Dad, how did you know Mommy was your destiny? And he said, your grandfather, he told me. So, as Lisa mentioned, when I was growing up in Cliffside Park, my town was extremely diverse. There were 33,000 Italian Catholics and 6 Arabs who were all my family. Now there are 20 Arabs and they're still all my family. But I don't think anyone ever noticed that I was an Italian. I mean, look at me. I look like the lost Kardashian. When I was born, the doctors told my parents that I would never walk. And a lot of people with CP don't walk, and there's absolutely no shame in that. But my father had a mantra, And his mantra was, "You can do it, yes you can, kid." And he was determined to teach me how to walk. And he had two different techniques. The first was he would place my feet on his feet and he would just walk. I walked miles on that man's shoes. The second thing he would do is he would dangle a dollar in front of me. My inner stripper was so strong. First day in kindergarten, I was running in stilettos. So, when it was time for me to go to grammar school, the public school system did not want to allow me to attend public school. They wanted to send me to a school for children with special needs, specifically Down syndrome. So my father sued the school because he had a policy of treating me exactly the same way that he treated my 3 older sisters. So if my sisters were mopping, I was mopping. If my sisters went to public school, we would sue the system and have me go to school too. And if we didn't all get A's, we all got my mother's slipper. So a lot of people tell me, like, when did you realize you were disabled? The very first time I realized I had a disability was when my mom threw a slipper at me. Because my mom would throw the slipper and she would purposely miss so that you would bring it back and be in striking distance. And I remember looking at her and going, "Mom, you wouldn't hit a disabled kid." And she was like, "I'm going to slipper you straight right now." But what was really interesting about growing up in Cliffside Park, New Jersey was I was never treated differently. I was never bullied. I was never made fun of. I was never an other. So the fact that I grew up Muslim in a Catholic town affected no one. No one. My friend's only concern was that I might starve to death during Ramadan. So they would try to sneak me gummy bears. I'd be like, "You're not helping." Ramadan is a tough one. It's a tough one to sell because as Muslims in America, you guys put a lot of pressure on us to keep up your Santa Claus lie. It's all on us. We have to take our kids aside and be like, "Listen, I know that you know about this whole Santa thing, but you can't destroy the other kids' dreams. You can, just pretend like I didn't know." But as I said, growing up Muslim in America was not a big deal when I was growing up. It simply wasn't. And when I see what kids are going through today, it's shocking to me. And the first reason it's shocking is being Muslim is not the same as being a person of color. So I'm Arab, and you can tell. You can tell that I'm an Arab, and you may ask yourself, "Well, Maysoon, how can we tell?" I will tell you how. I have the kind of facial hair that no waxing in the world can do. How do you spot a Muslim? How do you spot a Muslim? You actually can't. You can't identify someone by the way they dress, by the color of their skin. So when I hear about the hate crimes against Muslims, when I hear about profiling of Muslims, it confuses me. Because I'm like, how do you profile 1 billion people who have nothing in common except spirituality? It doesn't manifest itself physically. Quite often, when I do TV, they will never bring me in on Muslim issues. And that's confusing to me because we are very, very popular in America. The news loves to talk about us, but they never bring me on. So I asked one day why they didn't, and they said, "Well, you don't practice." And I was like, "I practice 5 times a day. What are you talking about?" But they thought because my hair wasn't covered, that meant I wasn't actually a Muslim. Because the picture of what a Muslim woman looks like in America is very specific. You have to be covered, and you have to be oppressed. And since I'm neither covered, but I am oppressed, they they don't understand that you can be Muslim and have long, luxurious black hair. But growing up in Cliffside Park, New Jersey, being Muslim wasn't an issue. Being Arab wasn't an issue. The only time that I really felt different was in the summer. Because in the summer, my friends would go to the Jersey Shore, and I would be shipped off to a war. Yeah, my dad would put me and my sisters on a plane at the end of every school year, and he would send us to Palestine. Because he was convinced that if we didn't go back every single year, we would forget our roots and grow up to be Madonna. And there is where I first experienced racism, bigotry, hate. Because I would fly back there, and as soon as I walked into the airport, I would stop being American, and I would become Palestinian. And being Palestinian wasn't something that they liked. So as a child, I never understood what was happening. I never understood why I was stripped as a child. And I remember distinctly trying to get my pantyhose back on and not being able to. Because after I had been stripped, I was sweating and I was nervous, and trying to get those back on is impossible. And that was where I first encountered racism. But it didn't affect me until I was an adult. As a child, I didn't comprehend what was happening. As an adult, it's everywhere. So in elections, 2014 elections, you have governmental officials who get on stage and use "I hate Muslims" as a campaign slogan. An Oklahoma congressman who won stated that Muslims are a cancer that need to be cut out of America. And I think of the students today who are subjected to leadership like that. I think of the students today who hear things like that. And I wonder if as a child I heard those things, would I hate myself? People often ask me, growing up Muslim in a Christian town, weren't you bitter that Santa skipped your house? Weren't you bitter about anything? No, I wasn't. You know, my friends would take me to midnight mass and show me off, and they'd be like, she's where Jesus is from. And for some reason, I think this is important to come full circle back to this. My friends never made fun of me. My friends never pressured me. So my family was extremely, extremely conservative. And our girls don't date, we get married. If you don't believe me, look at what happened to George Clooney. So there was a list of activities. There was a list of activities that I was not allowed to do as a child. Like I wasn't allowed to ride a bike or a carousel horse. If my dad saw a seesaw, he'd pass out cold. And it wasn't because he thought that I would hurt myself. It was because he was afraid that I would accidentally lose my virginity. You ever done that? Before I get back to the virginity story, which is really fun. I got to do my favorite sign language trick. Are you ready for me? Here we go. طب أنا اسمي ميسون زايد وهذا بدي أشوف من أعرف فيها هلا. Bring a sign language interpreter. You cannot really be inclusive if you don't include everyone. So my dad used to take us on these educational trips at Christmas. He would take us down to the Bowery in New York City, which is where all the prostitutes would be. Or we call them sex workers, whatever's appropriate, because I'm trying very hard. It's very hard for a comedian to be PC. But one of the things I did was I have eliminated the word bitch from my vocabulary. Because I was doing a show, and I kept saying bitch, 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 and one of the women came up to me and she said, you know, Maysoon, you're a role model for some women, and it's really misogynistic, and you should stop saying bitch. And I don't like censorship, because I'm a comedian who has performed all over the Muslim world, uncovered and uncensored. So to be censored in America is something I'm completely against, because I've actually risked my life in the Middle East to be uncensored, so I try to make sure that I never allow it here. And I thought about it, and I was like, but that's not censorship. Because when you're doing something that's offensive and painful to people, and you think it's funny and they don't, that's not the point of a comedian. The point of a comedian is to make their audience laugh, not make their audience hate. So I decided to replace the word bitch with the word popple. And I want you to all consider this replacement. It's very good. The word is popple. P-O-P-P-L-E. My round of applause. Anyone know what a popple is? Great. So here's what happens. First of all, you're in like a heated situation and you want to call someone a bitch, and instead you're like, listen, you crazy popple. It's not really as mad as I was. It sounds great with everything. You're like, Papa, please. And for those of you who don't know what a popple is, I will tell you what it is and why it's perfect. A popple is a stuffed animal that can stick its head in its booty and turn it into a ball. Stick your head in your ass and roll out of here. When we saw the CIA and my mom, I kind of look like a Christmas tree. Don't hate me for being a Christmas-loving Muslim. I went to Arizona State University. Anyone from Arizona? Of course not. Oh, God. I was the only brown person on campus. It was like, where's Waldo? So I went to Arizona State University, and the reason was because my dream in life was to be on General Hospital. I wanted to be on General Hospital. I mean, what Muslim girl doesn't dream? And my father had told me, you can do it, yes you can, Dan. So I was like, okay. So I went to Arizona State to study theater. And the reason I chose Arizona State is because they gave me a sick scholarship. Because I grew up in the time of affirmative action. And I fit every single quota. So I remember the admissions officer calling me up and she was like, hi Maysoon, we would love for you to join us at Arizona State University. We had always looked for a black lesbian in a wheelchair. And we found you. I was like, oh, I'm going to make you buy me a car. So I went to Arizona State University, and I did great in theater. I got A's in all of my classes. I got A's in all my classmates' classes because I did their work. They're actors, poor things. And I never, ever got cast in any of the plays. And this was confusing to me because I was getting A's in my classes, and whenever I did a scene from The Glass Menagerie, my professors would weep. But I never got cast in anything. My senior year, Arizona State University decides to do a show called They Dance Real Slow in Jackson. It's about a girl with cerebral palsy. I was a girl with cerebral palsy, so I was like, free at last, free at last. Thank God I'm finally gonna get a part of free at last. And I didn't get the part. Sherry Brown got the part. And when I went to the theater department to ask why, the head of the department said, I didn't get the part because I couldn't do the stunts. And I looked at her and I said, sweetie, if I can't do the stunts, neither can the fucking character. This is a part that I was literally born to play. You can learn College was imitating Hollywood. Hollywood has a sordid history of casting able-bodied actors to play disabled on screen. And I have a theory, and my theory is this. If a wheelchair user can't play Beyonce, then Beyonce can't play a wheelchair user. No? Beyonce can do anything. So we'll try this instead. If a wheelchair user can't play Hillary Clinton, then Hillary Clinton can't play a wheelchair. As long as I can hold her head underwater for 3 minutes. There are different types of disabilities. There are those that are visible, and there are those that are invisible. And I believe that visible disabilities are as visual as race, and that you can't play something like that without looking like a caricature. There's another issue, and the issue is people with disabilities are not given the opportunity to play any other roles. We don't get to be the wacky girlfriend on The Big Bang Theory. We don't get to be the romantic lead in a movie that's not about disability. So these are the only parts that we're actually able to play, and they're going to people of privilege, right? And by the way, even though I talk about being the most oppressed woman in the world, I am fully aware of my privilege, and I check it every single day, and so should you. I love the stories being told about us in the media. So I got a phone call the other day. I always joke about I have so many things going against me for Hollywood, right? Because I'm not only disabled, I'm also ethnic, and you can't be both. Like, if you're gonna have one thing going, you can't have two things, right? And I have three because I'm a woman too. And I always talk about the image of Arab women on television, which is actually different than the image of Muslim women. Arab women have more variety. You can be two things. You can either be a belly dancer or wearing a burqa. So you have those choices, which is nice. Selma Hayek plays all of us. So when I graduated college, I moved back home to Cliffside Park, New Jersey, because I live walking distance from New York City. And New York City was home to 4 major soap operas at that time. So I was like, this is the place to be. And when I moved home, my friends came up with this great idea because we had all turned 21. I became everybody's designated driver. This is because Muslims don't drink, or at least we pretend not to. So Muslims don't drink. So my friends were like, well, you don't drink, and we need someone to drive, so why don't you be the designated driver? I'm like, yeah, sure, this is a great idea. I love being included. Let's do this. So by the way, you can invite your Muslim friends to the bar. They can either drink juice or hide in the corner drinking. It's fine. So this was a horrible idea because even though I loved their confidence in me and I knew I was up to the task, every single time I got pulled over by the cops, it was the same damn story. I would roll down the window and be like, hey. And they'd be like, are you drunk? And I'd be totally indignant. I'd be like, I am not drunk. I am differently abled. And they would look at my best friend Tina, who was like 4. And they'd be like, is she drunk? And Tina would go, no, she's not drunk, she's retarded. I was like, you're gonna walk home. No, I didn't mean that as an insult. I just mean like you ride the short bus. I was like, I don't ride the short bus, I'm driving you right now. And then the police officer would be like, ma'am, I'm going to need you to come out and walk a straight line. And I'm like, no. I'm like, can I just do the alphabet backwards instead? I have that memorized. I'd be like, Z-Y-X-W. of you, and they'd be so impressed, and he'd be like, I never got past the LLP, and I'll wait till that one goes through. So now on a very serious note, something that I don't think people think about, because when we talk about hatred towards Muslims in America, it's something that some people can avoid, because when we talk about it, we talk about the fact that people can pass. But I don't think a lot of people think about what people with disabilities face when they're out in the world and they have to deal with law enforcement. And I don't think we think about what people with disabilities, who are also people of color, have to deal with when they're dealing with law enforcement. So when I walked out, I attempted to do the hands up, don't shoot. But it's actually extremely difficult for me to do that. And I think of the kids out there that don't have the ability to put their hands up when they're told to. I think of people who have hearing issues that can't hear what's happening. And we as a community need to understand that people with disabilities are at an extra risk, because so often they can't comply because they physically, are unable to, or they physically can't hear, or if they have learning disabilities or developmental disabilities, they might not comprehend. So we need to figure out a way for those people to be safe in this unsafe environment. So I got my big break in 2010. I was invited to be a guest on Countdown with Keith Olbermann. Keith Olbermann used to be a newsman before he went to sports. It's insane, I know, but it's true. So I went on to Countdown with Keith Olbermann. I was so excited because I had finally gotten a car. And I had spent years and years and years fighting for the mainstreaming of disability in media. And this was my big opportunity to prove that people with disabilities could do anything that other contributors did. And I went on, I was dressed like I was going to the prom, like big hair and floppy eyelashes. I was like, I'm ready for my close-up. I walk in, and they put me on a spinning, rolling chair. So I looked at the stage manager, and I was like, excuse me, can I get a different chair? And she looked at me and she goes, 5, 4, 3, 2, and we're doing it live. So I'm on live television now, holding the bottom of my chair and going like this as I attempt not to roll off the screen. And I was livid. I had finally gotten my big break and I blew it. And I knew that I would never be invited back again. But not only did Keith Olbermann invite me back, he made me a full-time contributor, and he taped down my chair. So when I got home from my big debut, I went on Google to Google myself, because I'm an actress, and we do that like 75 times a day. It's how it is. And I was expecting to read stuff like, that lost Kardashian is brilliant. Those eyelashes, they're stunning. And instead, what I read was hundreds of people trying to guess what the fuck was wrong. Because Keith Olbermann never addressed my disability on air. And the reason we didn't address it was because it wasn't the subject at hand. We were talking about, at the time, Michelle Bachmann and Herman Cain and the people who were part of the Republican primary. We weren't talking about disability, so there was no reason to mention it. And I'm sitting there on YouTube reading these comments, and they're saying things like, yo, why is she tweaking? Oh, she's Arab. I bet her husband beat her. And I was like, I'm not even married. And then my very, very favorite one, poor Gumby mouth terrorist, we should really pray for her. And it made me think back. Why was I never made fun of as a child? Why was it not okay for people to say these things when I was a child? Why in my entire life, and when I debuted on Oberman, I had already passed 30. In my entire life, I had never, ever had my cerebral palsy made fun of. I knew it was a challenge. I knew that I had to work harder than the other actresses to try and get a job. But I never knew that people thought it was disturbing, freakish, ugly, that people didn't want me on their TV. People said, it's so distracting, I can't stand to look at her. And I think that the reason this is because media, in general, whether it's broadcast news, film, or TV, lacks positive images of disability. And I believe that if we had more positive images of disability, but there was a flip side. And the flip side was there was a newspaper that wrote, not often do you see a person with disability talking about anything other than being disabled on TV. But last night on Countdown with Keith Oberman, that's exactly what we saw. And that made everything else that was being said to me work. So now where are the positive images of Islam in the media? Where are the positive images of Muslims in the media? I have done comedy all throughout the world. And in America, show after show, I have people coming up to me and saying, Maysoon, I've never actually met a Muslim. And I go, yeah, you have. You just don't know it. You know, there's doctors, there's lawyers, there's at least one taxi driver, let's be honest. It's interesting that people really, truly think that if they can't physically identify you, that you're not an other. But we aren't an other. We are part of this community. You can be born and raised in America, and you can be Muslim, and they don't clash. They don't. I'm telling you, I'm not going to say it's not hard. People put bacon on everything. It's really not hard. Like, I grew up fasting. No one else was fasting. It's fine. You don't have to make special accommodations. You don't have to feel bad and not eat in front of them. You shouldn't throw food at them, that's all. But, you know, people feel like it's a sensitive thing and I have to be so sensitive, and it's not. Spirituality is personal. But unfortunately, the powers that be have decided to make it an issue that divides rather than gathers. And all I'm saying in this room is, there is no difference between my faith and your faith, as long as we approach that faith from a place of love and positivity, rather than a place of division. Let's talk about marriage, because I'm done being preachy. Round of applause, who's married? Since they were both equally painful options, I chose marriage because I had been a bridesmaid 17 times and I wanted to make my money back. And so I also was really, really sick and tired of the bridal bouquet toss. Like, I couldn't take that anymore. Because, you know, when you're a bridesmaid and you're single, they march you out on the dance floor and they throw the bouquet, and catching is not my thing. It's not bad enough I'm single, you have to throw shit at me. Since I'm getting married, I need to catch a husband. But like I said, I'm from a conservative Muslim family and we don't date, we get married. But I couldn't do what my parents did because I'm way too disabled to inbreed. And I couldn't do Match.com because typing is not my thing. So I was like, where can a 33-year-old Muslim chick with cerebral palsy catch a husband? And then it came to me. You guys want to know where I caught my husband?
Where?
Now I need more encouragement. I'm like, I went to Gaza. Because they got no place to run. I took my American passport and I framed it gold. Refugee camp going, you want a visa, baby? I was like, yeah. So I'm like, pack up your stuff. Let's go. Tried to bring a 30-year-old Muslim male who spent 6 years in political prison to New York City. And it's no picture. And I don't feel like the FBI understands us. Because the first question they asked him when he went to get his visa was, do you love her? And he said, that's none of your goddamn business. So I bring him back to America. I'm really excited now because I'm going to have a bridal shower and make my money back. And I registered for all stuff I couldn't drop and break. And I was like, oh, what a classic. And I went to my bridal shower. And instead of having a bridal shower, my friends staged an intervention. Because like I said, I went there single, I came back pretty much married. And so my best friend Tina meets me at the door with a piece of paper, and she starts reading, and she's like, Maysoon, the decisions you are making are affecting both you and us. And I am here to tell you that you are a free American woman, and you do not, I repeat, you do not have to have an arranged marriage. And I was like, Tina, I arranged it. She goes, oh, I know how this ends. I know how this ends. This ends with you in a burqa screaming, not without my daughter. And I'm like, Tina, if I'm in burqa, I don't care what happens to my daughter. And then he told me that husbands come with mother-in-laws. So those of you who are still single, I highly, highly recommend finding an orphan. I have a mother-in-law, and she loves me very much. She calls me Ghadab Allah, which translates to demon from God. And I feel very, very bad for her because she can never come and visit her son in America because she is on the Homeland Security terror watch list because I put her there. It wasn't a false report because she terrorizes me. I taught her how to use Skype, which she calls Skypey. And she calls us on Skypey. And she always asks me the same question. Are you pregnant? Very fat, very loud. Are you pregnant? And I always tell her the same thing. I can't get pregnant. If I get pregnant, I will die like Shelby from Steel Magnolias. You know how there are those women who are like, I'd rather have a moment of happiness than a lifetime of nothing. I'm like, I'll take the lifetime of nothing. Yeah, I'd like to not die. That's great. Thanks. So she doesn't get it. And I've told her this a million times. So last time she called me, same question, are you pregnant? And I was like, listen lady, I've told you a million times, if I get pregnant, I will die. And her response was, oh, just try once. My name is Maysoon Zayid, and if I can, you can. Physical therapy, so they sent me a dance class. So now, this is a really fun part. There's two microphones. There's one here and there's one there. If you have any questions, you can line up and ask ask me a question, and you've got to ask me a question. I need a break from talking. No, I could talk for hours. Restaurants. Oh, come on. Oh, here's someone. Yes.
Hi there.
The answer is no.
My name is Melissa. I'm an English teacher in San Francisco at University High School, and I identify as Middle Eastern and Lebanese and Turkish. Come from an interfaith family, Catholic and Muslim, and something that is constantly on my mind is why do you think Middle Easterners are constantly, or not constantly, but usually left out of POC conversations?
I think one of the big reasons is that we're not an identifiable minority. And that's one of the things that I keep saying over and over, my mom has red hair, green eyes, and white porcelain doll skin. And she totally didn't adopt me because she would have adopted a boy. And, and I think that first of all, we're not identifiable. And we didn't really become official minority group or a group that faced hate until post 9/11. So when I talk about growing up in New Jersey, I was growing up with Italians and Greeks and, Irish people, and we were all first generation, All of our parents had accents. They all were, from somewhere else. And the fact, like I say over and over, that we were Middle Eastern or that we were Muslim wasn't a big deal. And I think it became a big deal post 9/11. And that was exacerbated by the unjust war that we entered in Iraq, which has affected so many American families' lives, so many. Have people in the service who have come back, wounded and with sort of this picture of the Middle East that is not the Middle East that I grew up in. So I think that we have actually become a minority group in recent history. And when I started seeing things like Westboro Baptist Church burning Qurans, I went on a tour called The Muslims Are Coming. And we went to the Deep South during Ramadan to do shows in towns that had burnt Qurans or burned down mosques and stuff like that. And it was so amazing how great those people were to us and how much fear they had that was based in nothing but fear-mongering. But we live in a society where Pam Geller gets to buy posters that talk about Muslims as savages. Savages, So when you see those images that are constantly inundating the media, constantly on TV, I mean, the TV 24 made its name by having Arab villains, Homeland with the Arab villains. We replaced the Russians. And I'm just sitting here waiting for North Korea to take our place. Okay, to the right now.
Hi, my question is, are you going to tell the Virginia story?
I never told the Virginia story? No. Oh my God! Didn't I talk about rolling up to the prostitute, then I got distracted by the popple. Okay. So here's the way it goes. So my dad, this is totally true, and I swear it wasn't abusive. I'm really happy I don't have STDs. It's good. So my dad used to roll up to the prostitute, and he would look at her and look at me and my sisters and look at her, and he'd say, "Do you see? Do you see what will happen if you use a tampon?"
My question is, do you think that all independent schools have an obligation or responsibility to be completely inclusive? And if so, how are we doing and what can we do better?
I think all of society, especially first world American society, has an obligation to be inclusive. And I think that the lack of inclusiveness is a denial of how diverse this country has become. It really is. We've come such a long way since I had to see the school system to be mainstream. But the problem is, you're like, yes, we're diverse, but we do nothing to actually include them. So often inclusion means inviting people, but not inviting them to the table, just leaving them in the background, standing. So we're obligated to have everyone be included and not make it a burden. And that's the challenge. The challenge is that we're constantly doing stuff where we're trying to be inclusive by separating them and giving them a platform. And what real inclusion is gathering everyone together. And I think it piggybacks the question that the other woman had, which was, why are the Middle Eastern people often left behind? The disabled have been run over in the intersection of intersectionality. We are not considered at all, because it's too much. It's, how are we going to do it? And it's such a challenge. And I think that with inclusion, the most important thing, whether you're dealing with race, faith, ability, sexual orientation, is listening to what they need and understanding that they're not asking for anything they don't, because asking is so hard to begin with. Lesson about inclusion I actually learned from Adam Sandler. And I was doing an Adam Sandler movie, and I was so blessed and lucky. It was like comedy heaven. It was like Chris Rock, Kevin James, Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider. I was like, yeah. And I had a trailer, and you had to pull yourself up into the trailer. And I could never get into it. And I used to take like a running jump and try to jump in. And one day Adam Sandler passed by and I'm like face down with my arms in the trailer, my legs are like waving, I'm trying to get in. And he was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, it's really hard to get in the trailer, man. And he goes, why didn't you ask for stairs? And I said to him, I didn't want to be high maintenance because it was such a risk for you to hire someone with a disability, and I didn't want people to think in the future that it was too much work and not hire us again. And he looked at me, he goes, Mariah Carey's in the next trailer, and not high maintenance.
Hello, can you tell us maybe a little bit about a day in the life of your work with Maysoon's kids?
Oh yeah, thanks. Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up. So obviously Oprah's my idol. She's everybody's idol. And I started Maysoon's Kids when I was watching the Oprah Winfrey Show. She was all about giving back and like giving what you have. And I often thought about the fact that if my parents hadn't sued the school and I had gone to the school for children with special needs, I do not believe I would be sitting on this stage today. I simply don't. I don't think it's possible. So what that made me think of was the kids in Palestine are not allowed to go to public school if they have physical disabilities. The private schools will take them, but the public schools will not integrate kids with cerebral palsy, deafness, muscular dystrophy, spina bifida, autism, learning disability, none of it. So what I wanted to do was give those kids a sliver of the chance my parents gave me, and I founded Maysoon's Kids. And what we do is we take very small groups of children with physical disabilities, and we built a classroom where we mirror the Palestinian Authority's curriculum, and we add a lot of great stuff like arts and guest speakers and things to enhance that's lacking from their curriculum. And in the 3rd grade, we integrate them into the school system by proving that they can test at the same level or higher than their non-disabled counterparts. Kids at www.maysoon.com, and since you guys are educators, and I'm an educator too, before I became a comedian I taught 7th and 8th grade reading and English at a Catholic school like all good Muslims. When you can go to www.maysoon.com. I bought my name like Cher when I was young, and I thought I'd be famous, and I'm on the Z list, but I'm working on it. And maybe it's something that your kids could like get involved in, doing projects or pen paling or something. I don't know. Those kids need people from all over the world to just embrace them, because without us helping them, they have absolutely no right to education, and they suffer from constant violence surrounding them, and anything we can do to bring light. So please visit the website and Check it out. Okay, guys, unfortunately, I'm having such a good time, but apparently we have to eat at some point. So this is the last question, and it goes to the man on the left. You guys in the back, feel free to run up and ask me whatever you want to, and I have business cards, and we can take pictures. I can't take selfies because they're called blurries. I'm done. So final question.
First of all, I'd just like to thank you because your story is powerful, transformative, and relatable. And I just want to know, how do you suggest or recommend that we as independent school teachers help to empower our students and give them the voice to find their narrative and really seek it out, whether it's students in general, but particularly students who practice the Islamic faith or students with disabilities? How do we get them, or how do we help them to find their story the way you found it?
Teach them to say no. That's how you do it. You teach them to say no. Teach them to say no to violence against women and violence against each other. Even though it sounds like something that's so much bigger than them, I believe that school is where stopping violence against women has to start. If we teach them from a very, very young age that we are all equal, that you are not superior to anyone around you, and that it is never, ever okay to hurt your fellow man. Teach them to say no to violence worldwide. Teach them that there is never, ever a good excuse to massacre a child. And teach them to say no to being silenced, because their voice is their weapon against inequality, and they have to learn how to use it.